Hello class, this is Mrs. Gallegos, and today we're going to be discussing biochemistry, the chemistry of life. This information can also be found in your textbook in Chapter 2, Section 3, pages 44 to 48. Polymers. As we know from building our models, polymers are large molecules made of smaller molecules called monomers. Here's an example of a monomer represented by a circle. If I take these monomers and link them together with a bond, I will get a polymer. Now, how do I make polymers? You know from building your models that if I remove an OH group from one monomer and an H hydrogen from another, I will be able to link the two monomers together. This process is called dehydration synthesis. Watch again. One hydroxide group, one hydrogen atom, and boom, I'm able to link the two monomers together, forming a polymer. Now, if I want to break the polymer apart into the monomers again, I will simply add water. This process is called hydrolysis. Hydro meaning water, lysis meaning to break apart. What are the different types of polymers? Well, they are carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Let's delve into each one. First, let's start with carbohydrates. As you know from building your models, the atoms found in carbohydrates are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. These atoms are used to assemble the monomer called a monosaccharide, mono meaning one, saccharide meaning sugar. These monosaccharides are also known as simple sugars, such as glucose and fructose. Examples of carbohydrates are cellulose and starch, which are found in plants, and glycogen, which is found in animal cells. And as you can see by looking at the diagram over here, starch is a polymer of individual glucose monomers. The same thing with cellulose and glycogen. Here's a zooming in picture of a plant. And if we zoom into the cellular level, into the cell wall, an organelle of the cell, and zoom and zoom and zoom and zoom, I will find the polymer of glucose called cellulose, which is what the cell wall in a plant cell is made out of. If I zoom into another organelle in the plant cell called the plastid, I will find these globules of starch. And if I zoom here, I will find the polymer of the glucose monomer. Animal cells don't have starch in them, but they have glycogen. And here's the chain of glucoses. Here's my glycogen carbohydrate, and it is found in the liver and the muscle. And our cells use glycogen, the carbohydrate, as a source for glucose. When our blood sugar starts to dip, our liver will release glucose into the bloodstream to maintain the blood glucose level until we eat another meal. The next category of macromolecules are the lipids. The lipids are made of atoms of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as well. However, in the lipids we'll find very little oxygen, mainly carbon and hydrogen. The monomers that make up lipid is a monomer called glycerol and another monomer called fatty acids. Examples of lipids are fats like butter and oils like olive oil. Another type of lipid are the steroid molecules, which can be sex hormones or growth hormones. The function of these lipids is very varied. Some of them build our cell membranes, very important lipids. Some of them, as we know, are for long-term energy storage. Lipids can waterproof, like the waxes. They can cushion, like the fats. And then they can be chemical messengers, like the sex hormones and growth hormones. And they allow one cell to talk to another. Here's a picture of a fat, actually this is a picture of a fat, and here's my glycerol, and here are 3 fatty acids. The next category of polymer are the nucleic acids. The nucleic acids are made of atoms of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus, an atom we haven't seen yet. The monomers are called nucleotides. The nucleic acids are named after their location in the cell, and that is the nucleus. There are 5 different types of nucleotides. Their names are adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, and uracil. And they are called after the first letter of their name. So you often see the nucleotides with the A and the T on them. These nucleotides are then polymerized into a long chain, and then they form this very famous double helix. So the 2 types of nucleic acids are RNA and DNA, and I bet you can guess what the Na stands for, nucleic acid. The function of these nucleic acids is to carry a code, and that code is used to give instructions for putting a protein together, knowing exactly which amino acid goes where in that long chain. Here's a zoomed in view of one nucleotide. Notice, just like we know from levels of structure, monomers, this is the monomer that makes up DNA, are made of smaller molecules. And so we have a nitrogenous base, a sugar, and a phosphate that make up one nucleotide. That nucleotide then is put together in a chain to make up the double helix that is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. The last category of macromolecules is the proteins. The proteins are made up of atoms, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. The monomers, as you know from our activity together, are called amino acids because they have an amine group and a carboxylic acid group. Examples of protein are hemoglobin, which is used to transport oxygen in red blood cells, pepsin, which is created by the stomach lining, and it catalyzes the breakdown of proteins in our meals, collagen, which is made in the skin and bone, and it is used to build these structures, and then insulin, which is a protein chemical messenger. And it allows one cell to communicate with another cell in a different location in the body. Here is a picture of a protein, and as you can see, we have these individual monomers, the amino acids. You might recognize these 3 letters as belonging to glycine, one of the amino acids that you made in our modeling activity. And here's the other one, alanine was the other amino acid that you made. There are 18 more amino acids that are used to create proteins. You'll see this chain is not the end of the structure of a protein. This chain then gets twisted and folded and then completely twisted and globularized to form the protein. Then these globs can then come together and form a larger protein, so more levels of structure. Proteins are really important, and so because there are so many different amino acids, there needs to be instructions on which amino acid to put where in this chain that we call a protein, a polymer. Come to find out that the DNA has the instructions to assemble these proteins, and these instructions are in the nucleotides. Remember we talked about adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine? So these nucleotides in DNA, the nucleic acid, are a code for assembling a protein. And so this is the connection between the DNA and the amino acid polymer called a protein. To sum it all up, we see that we have our atoms that all the different polymers are made out of. They're monomers, monosaccharide, glycerol, fatty acid, nucleotides, adenine, guanine, cytosine, and adenine, and the amino acids. And remember, there's 20 different ones. We have the examples, and then we have the functions. So go ahead, and if you haven't already done so during the lecture, go ahead and fill out your graphic organizer, and maybe have somebody at home quiz you to see how well you can remember all the different levels of structure in biochemistry. And I'll see you in class next time we meet.